If Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed because of their corruption, then is today's world really any different? Take just 1 second to pause and ask yourself. We live in an age of advanced civilization and technology, but has human nature actually changed compared to thousands of years ago? Or have we simply put on a new outfit, while deep inside the same sins and moral decay continue to grow silently? Picture this. You wake up in the morning. The news on the screen is overflowing with violence, corruption, and injustice. People seem numb, chasing nothing but pleasure and personal gain. Society spins into chaos, where compassion becomes a luxury. And then it hits youth. The scene looks like nothing more than a modern version of Sodom and Gomorrah. That ancient story is not just a piece of religious history. It is a mirror reflecting what is happening around us today. When corruption reached its peak, 2 magnificent cities were erased in fire. So, if modern society is walking down the same path, what awaits us at the end? In the next few minutes, we are going to explore together the true reason why Sodom and Gomorrah collapsed, and why that message was so urgent that it has echoed across thousands of years. You will see that this is not just an old tale, but perhaps a direct warning for our own time. Sodom and Gomorrah in the Bible. In the pages of the Old Testament, Sodom and Gomorrah appear as 2 magnificent cities, wealthy and crowded. People lived surrounded by comfort, pleasure, and prosperity. But from that very abundance, corruption began to seep into every corner of society. The Bible describes these cities as a cry that reached the heavens, their sins piling up to a point where no one could ignore them. These cities were infamous not only for violent crimes, but also for their arrogance, pride, and indifference. The people feasted in excess, indulging without restraint, yet they turned away from the poor and abandoned the helpless. This was the portrait of a fully decayed society, overflowing in material wealth, but rotten in spirit. In the face of such corruption, God declared that He would destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. But there was one detail that stands out powerfully. Abraham, known as the friend of God, pleaded earnestly for the fate of the 2 cities. He begged, "If there are 50 righteous people in the city, will you spare it for their sake?" God replied, "If there are 50, I will spare it." Abraham kept bargaining 45, then 40, then 30, 20, until he reached 10. And God still agreed. Yet even 10 righteous people could not be found. A vast city filled with countless inhabitants, but not even a small group of decent souls could be found to save them all. Corruption had covered everything to the very core, leaving not a single glimmer of light to hold on to. The story did not end there. 2 angels were sent to the house of Lot, Abraham's nephew, to warn him and rescue his family. But The moment they arrived, the townspeople gathered around, demanding to break in, demanding to satisfy their desires with the strangers. This was not just an act of sin, it was the final sign that society had lost all humanity. Instead of protecting the guests, they wanted to violate them. When hospitality's sacred value of the ancient East was replaced by such depravity, then what was left to preserve? Sodom and Gomorrah in the Bible are therefore not just ancient tales. They are a fierce reminder that when corruption spreads, when justice and compassion are strangled, collapse becomes only a matter of time. A message beyond time. If we only see Sodom and Gomorrah as a sentence of punishment, we will miss the most important meaning the Bible intends to deliver. Because Sodom was not just two cities consumed by fire. It was a vivid symbol of what happens to a society that reaches the very end of corruption. In the book of Ezekiel, there is an explanation that is often overlooked. The sin of Sodom was arrogance, excessive eating, a life of ease. But they did not help the poor and needy. This shows that the problem was not only twisted behavior or public crimes, but also indifference and coldness toward the suffering of others. When apathy becomes the way of life for everyone, that society has already signed its own death sentence. And if we look around today, this no longer feels unfamiliar. We live in modern cities, filled with dazzling lights, crowded shopping malls, and buzzing social media. But what lies behind that glitter? Every day, the news is flooded with corruption scandals, violence in schools, and stories of people willing to hurt one another for the smallest personal gain. The wealthy spend lavishly, while right next door, there are people who cannot even afford a full meal. Even more frightening, it seems we have gotten used to this. Seeing someone collapsed on the street, many walk by as if nothing happened. Hearing a story of injustice, many stay silent to keep themselves safe. Evil does not only exist because bad people act, but because good people refuse to speak out. That is the shadow of Sodom reflected in our own time. How many truly righteous people still live? How many are brave enough to stand for what is right? Would we even reach the number 10 to save an entire city? Or will the history of Sodom repeat itself once more, not with fire falling from the sky, but with indifference itself burning society from within? The lesson from Lot's wife. In a moment when Sodom and Gomorrah were about to be destroyed, God sent angels to lead Lot and his family to escape. They were given one instruction that seemed so simple: do not look back. It was a clear and absolute command, with no exceptions. Yet Lot's wife could not obey. As she fled the city, she looked back and instantly turned into a pillar of salt. Her death did not come from the fire or the destruction itself, but from one brief moment of disobedience. One glance toward a past she could not let go of. This was not just a miraculous detail in the Bible. It carried a profound metaphor. She looked back not only out of curiosity, but because her heart still clung to the old city, the place she once called home, the place where she had lived in comfort, the place she could not bear to leave behind. That attachment, that longing, turned her into a symbol of people who cannot let go, who cannot step forward. This message remains just as powerful for us today. How many times do we say we want to change, to turn a new page, yet find ourselves dragged back by old habits, by lifestyles we already know are destructive? How many people know full well that greed, lies, and selfishness will ruin them, and yet continue to chase after them, unwilling to give up immediate gains? The lesson from Lot's wife is a warning. If we keep looking back, we will be chained by the very past we refuse to release. If we hold tightly to what is wrong, we too will become a pillar of salt, a vivid symbol of being stuck, powerless in the middle of a life that keeps moving forward. And the question each of us must face is this: are we still looking back, clinging to the very things that will destroy us? When God calls us to move forward, will we have the courage to take the step, or will we be like Lot's wife, frozen in regret? Is today's world becoming a new Sodom? If today's society is slowly becoming a new Sodom, what does that mean for us, for our children, for the future of all humanity? This is not just a hypothetical question. It is a mirror reflecting directly onto our reality, forcing us to look at ourselves and the world we live in. Sodom and Gomorrah were once magnificent, wealthy, and developed cities. But beneath their glittering surface was total decay. And today, as we look around, we cannot help but wonder, are we walking the same road that Sodom once took? A modern society, material prosperity, moral cracks. Never before in human history have we had so many scientific, technological, and material achievements as we do today. We have the internet connecting the entire globe, modern medicine extending human life, and skyscrapers that light up the night. But alongside these wonders, the cracks in morality grow ever deeper. Corruption spreads across many nations, where power and money are placed above justice. Violence explodes both inside the home and outside in society, from devastating wars to schoolyard assaults that shock the public. People grow increasingly indifferent to one another. Walking down the street, someone in distress may be filmed for social media rather than rescued. We are living in an era where apathy is normalized and sometimes even indirectly encouraged. Moral collapse creeps into every corner. Human worth is too often measured by money, status, or the number of likes and views on social media, rather than by character and compassion. Children grow up surrounded by images of violence and lust, while families, the place that should be their foundation, break apart with frightening ease. The comparison with ancient Sodom. Looking back at Sodom, we find chilling similarities. The Bible describes them as arrogant, overfed, living in excess, yet indifferent to the poor and needy. That is exactly the picture we can see today. Dazzling modern cities shining with lights, while right beside them, millions of people live in poverty and injustice. Sodom was condemned not only for acts of lust or public depravity, but also because arrogance and indifference had consumed them. They no longer valued righteousness, they no longer preserved compassion, and when a society loses that, destruction is inevitable. A modern example, a miniature Sodom in the 21st century look. At today's humanitarian crises, wars forcing millions to flee their homes, children starving to death, while in another place, tons of food are wasted every single day. Massive corruption scandals surface, where billions of dollars meant for hospitals and schools are devoured to satisfy the greed of a few. Communities that once stood united are now torn apart by extremism, hatred, and division. Social media, designed to connect people of thing, becomes a tool for spreading lies. Hate speech and twisted truths crafted for selfish gain. We are witnessing a society where right and wrong are slowly being reversed, where evil can be celebrated and goodness mocked as weakness. How different is this from ancient Sodom, when the entire community had reached a point where not even a small group of righteous people remained to preserve it. If there were an Abraham today, when Abraham begged God to spare Sodom, he bargained from 50 down to just 10 righteous people, and God agreed. But in the end, not even that number could be found. This detail makes us shudder when we think about our own time. Imagine if there were an Abraham today, standing before God, pleading for our world. How many righteous people would he find? Would there even be 10 to save humanity? Or would the world once again hear the same sentence that Sodom received thousands of years ago? The signs of moral decay. If there is one thing that makes us shudder when we revisit the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, it is the resemblance to what we see happening today. Moral decay does not always erupt loudly or suddenly. It often creeps in slowly, gradually, until an entire community gets used to it, until chaos itself becomes normal. And that is the most dangerous stage, when people no longer realize they are falling. The rise of violence when life becomes cheap. Violence is one of the clearest signs of moral collapse. Today, the daily news is filled with murders, domestic abuse, and school violence. Human life, once sacred, seems to be treated as cheap and disposable. Ancient Sodom was the same. When two angels came to Lot's house, the townspeople surrounded it, violently demanding to satisfy their desires, ignoring both morality and law. A community where violence and lust overpower reason is a community digging its own grave. Family in crisis, the foundation shaken. Family has always been seen as the moral foundation of society. Yet today, the family itself is burdened with tragedy. Divorce rates climb. Children grow up in broken homes. Many are not raised by their parents, but by social media and peers. In the Bible, when Lot's family fled, his wife looked back and became a pillar of salt. That moment shows that even within a family, clinging to the past and disobedience can bring disaster. And today, how many families fall apart simply because they lack the courage to let go of what is wrong and move forward together? The erosion of trust in justice. A society can only stand firm when justice is upheld. Today, trust in justice is eroding. People witnessed the wealthy and powerful escape punishment, while the poor and vulnerable are pushed into dead ends. In Sodom, even when God searched for a handful of righteous people to save the city, none could be found. That revealed the complete collapse of their moral and legal order. And today, every time we see truth distorted and the wicked protected, we catch a glimpse of Sodom once again. The commercialization of human value. One of the starkest signs of modern moral decline is the way human beings are turned into commodities. A person's worth is often measured by how much money they earn, how attractive they appear, or how many followers they have on social media. Cold numbers replace character and kindness. In such a climate, decline is obvious. Shows and competitions profit by exploiting human suffering. Sensational, shocking news spreads rapidly, while messages of compassion and dignity are forgotten. Media and the normalization of evil. If ancient Sodom was consumed by corruption and immorality, today, global media spreads decay faster than ever before. Stories that should provoke outrage often become trends, gossiped about, mocked, and then quickly forgotten. When we consume endless violence and negative headlines, our sensitivity fades. A murder, a war, a tragedy, rather than breaking our hearts. They become just another tiny headline in the flood of daily information. Lessons from history when civilizations collapse for losing morality. Human history has witnessed again and again the fall of great civilizations. The Roman Empire once ruled almost all of Europe, but when corruption, decadence, and indulgence spread, it collapsed from within. Babylon, the most splendid city of the ancient world, vanished, and immorality crossed the line. These lessons repeat themselves. No civilization can endure if it loses its moral foundation. And as we look back at Sodom or at our world today, the question looms: are we walking down the same path of history's ruins? Sodom fell because not even a small group of righteous people remained to save it. So what about our present society with all its chaos, violence, corruption, and indifference? Can we truly be confident that humanity will escape that fate? Or are we simply walking the very road Sodom once walked, not yet reaching the final step? Not just a religious story. This is a lesson for all humanity when people think of Sodom and Gomorrah. Most of us picture a purely religious, a counter-biblical event meant to warn humanity. But if we stop there, we miss the depth of the story. In truth, Sodom is not merely a moral tale for the faithful. It is a sweeping metaphor for the survival, or destruction of human society itself. Sodom, a metaphor for the fall of a community. Sodom was once a wealthy, flourishing city, overflowing with material prosperity. Yet beneath its glamorous light lay the shadows of indifference, greed, and moral corruption. The Bible tells us the city was condemned not just for depraved acts, but also for its pride, selfishness, and disregard for the poor. This is not simply sin as defined by religion. It is an objective law. When a community loses justice and compassion, it will inevitably destroy itself. A philosophical and sociological perspective through the lens of philosophy and sociology. One truth becomes undeniable. A society can only endure if it is built on justice, compassion, and unity. When justice disappears, the strong trample the weak, and chaos takes over. When compassion fades, people grow indifferent, losing the will to protect one another. When unity breaks apart, individuals and groups care only for themselves, leading to conflict and collapse. Sodom is a vivid example of how quickly a community can fall when these three foundations are destroyed. The new Sodoms of our world. Looking at the world today, we see global crises that reflect the exact lessons of Sodom. Climate change. The planet is heating up. Disasters grow more violent. Oceans rise. This is not only an environmental issue, but also the result of unrestrained greed humanity, exploiting nature without limit for short-term satisfaction. Wars and conflicts. From the Middle East to Africa to Europe, wars continue. Millions are displaced. Thousands lose their lives all because of the lust for power and the poison of hatred. Social and racial division. In many places, racial, religious, and cultural prejudice remain open wounds. Instead of uniting, societies grow more polarized, and the very foundation of solidarity cracks apart. A crisis of trust. We have more tools for connection than ever, yet people feel lonelier than ever. Faith in justice and truth is eroding. Lies and truth are twisted, leaving society teetering on the edge. All of this happens when people place ego, desire, and power above truth, righteousness, and compassion. The pattern of civilizations collapse. What is frightening is that this is not the first time humanity has collapsed after losing its moral foundation. History is filled with examples. The mighty Roman Empire once ruled nearly all of the Western world. But when decadence, indulgence, and corruption spread, it fell not by enemies outside, but by rot within. Babylon, the most splendid city of the ancient world, struck fear into nations. Yet arrogance, immorality, and moral breakdown led it to ruin. The Maya, the Inca, and the Angkor civilizations all declined. Not only because of natural factors, but because people lost balance and the foundation of social unity. These examples show us the same repeating pattern. Whenever morality is abandoned, whenever justice is neglected, whenever greed takes over, collapse is only a matter of time. This is not just ancient history. Some may see the story of Sodom as ancient, but the truth is the opposite. Sodom is not only a city that was wiped away, it is a mirror reflecting every society walking the same path of destruction. We see the signs everywhere, in climate crises, in violence, in war, in social polarization, in the crisis of trust. These are not isolated issues, they are pieces of a much larger picture. Humanity slowly turning itself into a new Sodom. Sodom fell. That is an unchangeable fact. But the question for us today is this: if humanity does not change, are we simply writing the same tragedy again, only on a larger scale, not 2 cities, but the entire world? A question for the future. What kind of world will our children live in? If society continues on its current path, what will our children inherit? Will it be a more civilized, wealthier, happier world, or a giant Sodom, destroying itself from the inside? This is a question no one can avoid, and it strikes directly at the deepest fear of parents and grandparents, the future of the next generation. A troubling vision. Picture 30 or 50 years from now, when today's young people have grown up. What kind of society will they live in? If violence, corruption, indifference, and division continue, then these children will grow up in a world without safety, without trust, and without moral standards. Such a world may be more advanced in technology, richer in material wealth, yet empty within, like a dazzling skyscraper whose foundations have already rotted away. The commercialization of education. One of the most painful problems today is that education, the foundation of the future, is being commercialized. In many places, schools are no longer spaces to teach character and wisdom. They are turning into markets where parents must compete with money to give their children advantages. While the essence of education, nurturing a complete human being, is abandoned. When knowledge becomes a commodity, children are taught to take tests, to compete, but not to become human beings of compassion and integrity. The result is a generation that may be technologically skilled and intelligent, but lacking in kindness, empathy, and responsibility toward the community. Children growing up without trust. Think of the children who every day watch the news filled with war, corruption, and violence. What will they learn? Will they still believe that justice exists, that truth will be defended, that kindness has value? If adults themselves no longer trust the justice system, no longer trust in truth, how can children develop trust for their own lives? A generation without trust is a generation vulnerable to despair, confusion, or extremism, violence and indifference seeping into childhood. Today, children are exposed far too early to images of violence through movies, games, and social media. Many begin to see fighting, hateful words, and aggression as normal, when violence becomes a joke, when indifference becomes a reflex. It is a clear sign that we are raising a generation with distorted values. If nothing changes, we will end up with a generation that grows up lacking the ability to love, to respect one another, and to build peace. What happens to a generation without standards? Imagine a generation where money is the only measure of worth, where people betray friends to get ahead, where love and marriage are reduced to contracts of convenience, where honesty is seen as foolishness. That would be a society where ruthless competition overwhelms sharing, where people live as though in a jungle of laws filled with injustice. And the very children raised in such an environment will be both the victims and the culprits, perpetuating the cycle of decay. Can we afford to ignore this? Can we ignore it when our own children and grandchildren will be the victims of collapse? Can we keep living as if nothing is happening, while every day, each generation is swept deeper into a storm of indifference and corruption? If we do nothing, then that irresponsibility will be the true legacy we leave behind. Not advanced technology, but a society without direction, a generation completely lost. A warning from the past. Sodom was wiped out in a single night. Fire from heaven consumed everything, ending a city that had once been prosperous. It is a reminder that collapse can come quickly, without warning, without a second chance. And the haunting question remains: who dares to be certain that our civilization today could not collapse just as suddenly? If one day the entire world faces a day of judgment, not from God, but from the consequences we ourselves have created, will our children and grandchildren have anywhere left to stand? A ray of hope. Unlike Sodom, we still have a chance for the past several minutes. We have walked through a heavy journey, from the corruption of Sodom and Gomorrah to the signs of decay in today's society, to the dark future awaiting the next generation. These images may feel suffocating, even hopeless. But here, there must be a turning point, because, unlike Sodom, we still have a chance. Sodom had no chance, but we do. When the fires consumed Sodom, that was the end. No room for repentance, no time for change. Yet the story was recorded not to tell a tale of despair, but to become a warning for future generations. That means we do not have to follow the same path. We can choose a different road. Today's world, though chaotic, still holds countless opportunities for change, because we are being warned by history itself. The sparks in the darkness. If we only look at the negative, we will easily fall into helplessness. But look closer. In the midst of darkness, there are countless small flames still burning bright. In many places, powerful social movements rise to fight for justice, for human rights, for equality. Those who dare to speak up for the weak, for the voiceless, prove that justice has never vanished. Across the world, individuals quietly do good. Teachers dedicated to remote villages. Doctors risking their lives in war zones to save others. Young people who reject indulgence to serve their communities. There are small communities that, though modest, keep the flame of kindness alive. Groups that care for orphaned children. Families that preserve traditions of love and responsibility. Businesses that choose ethics over profit at any cost. These things may not make the headlines, but they are the foundation that keeps humanity from being completely swept away. Change begins with each person. Change does not always have to start with major policies or global movements. It can begin with the small actions of individuals. When a father or mother teaches their child honesty and generosity. When a student chooses to help a classmate instead of mocking them. When a citizen dares to speak out against injustice, even with just a comment, a signature, a small act. When each of us chooses kindness in our daily decisions, refusing deceit, refusing indifference, refusing to turn away from another's pain. All these small actions, when combined, can become a powerful current, strong enough to transform society. Not just a religious duty, but humanity's responsibility. The crucial point is this. This message is not only for people of faith. No matter who you are, whether you believe in God or not, the lesson of Sodom still applies. Because it is about the survival of human society. A community can only last if it preserves morality, justice, and compassion. Lose those three, and collapse is unavoidable. That is why this is not only a reminder for believers, but a wake-up call for all humanity. Unlike Sodom, we still have time. We still have a chance. And that chance begins today with me, with every small action that makes the world better. The story of Sodom may have ended in flames, but the story of our world has not ended yet. We can write a different ending of change and of hope. Unlike Sodom, we still have a chance to change. If we begin now, we have walked a long journey together, from revisiting the biblical story of Sodom and Gomorrah to comparing it with the world we live in today. Page by page, detail by detail, one undeniable truth has emerged. This story is not only about destruction, but also about warning and about the opportunity to change. Sodom and Gomorrah disappeared in a single night. But their destruction was not random. It was the inevitable result of a society that had lost its foundation of morality, justice, and compassion. And the most frightening part is this: the very same signs of arrogance, indifference, violence, corruption still exist in our world today. Throughout this video, we have seen haunting parallels from the decay within families and communities to the fall of once great civilizations, to the modern crises of war, climate change, social division, and the collapse of trust. Together, they paint a picture showing that humanity may be walking the very same road that Sodom once walked. But the story does not end there. Sodom had no chance, but we do. The very reason the Bible recorded this account was so that today's and tomorrow's generations could learn to avoid repeating it. And that is our greatest hope. Humanity still has time to change, to stop, to choose a different path. That change is not out of reach. It does not have to start with sweeping reforms or global political decisions. It can begin with each of us. A kind word, an honest act, a moment of care for the vulnerable. From families to small communities, and then to wider society. Small seeds of righteousness can save an entire city and perhaps even the entire world. So, the question you need to carry with you after watching this video is this: if today's world truly resembles Sodom, where will you choose to stand in history? Will you be indifferent, looking back like Lot's wife, trapped in the past? Or will you be one of the 10 righteous people strong enough to save an entire city, an entire world? The answer lies in your hands, in the way you live each day, in the small choices you make. And now, I would like to invite you to join this conversation. Share your thoughts in the comments. What do you see in today's society that resembles Sodom? And more importantly, what do you think we can do to change it? If this video has given you a new perspective, an awakening, or even just a moment of reflection, do not forget. Hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, so you will not miss the next stories. In the coming videos, we will continue exploring the profound secrets of the Bible stories that may seem old, but hold powerful messages for both the present and the future. And to close, I want to leave you with this reminder. Unlike Sodom, we still have the chance to change if we begin now.